Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast today. So I want to set the stage. I'm on a beautiful hike this morning at St. John's College. This is a wonderful trail and it's going to take me, if you see behind me, Sun Mountain, which is a great trail to get up to the top. You have some wonderful views up there. So the title of the podcast today is Your Vision is More a Nervous System Imbalance than an eye problem. So I want to start off the show and I want to talk about how conventional eye care is not really focusing on things like nervous system regulation, balance, orientation. And it's no fault to the training of eye doctors and also the structure of our eye care practice. I was trained in that same model. In that model that I first learned, the way to treat eye problems is through symptom management, and that you want to treat the eye as a mechanical optical system. Well, I learned early on that since the eyes were so interrelated to our brain, our nervous system, our balance, our posture, our movement, our nutrition, I went beyond what conventional eye care provides. But saying that, I think that they do offer a service that is needed, especially if you're just going in for an eye checkup. So for many people, when they get symptoms like dizziness, nausea, disorientation, problems with focusing, memory issues, balance problems, eye doctors aren't necessarily relating it to the eyes or vision in the way that I do. Once I started to look at vision as a regulation issue with the nervous system, then what happened was that as I applied my different physical therapy, functional vision, integrative body techniques that brought in things like vestibular health and postural orientation and what's our nutrition like, what's our stress level, that we could actually start to really make a change, especially with those symptoms, to the point where they wouldn't even come back if we started to look at vision as a whole body system. So today I want to tell a story about a person I just did a vision intensive with. And it's a very interesting case, and it's also very telling because it really spotlights what the potential is in viewing as a nervous system process. So this person contacted me because they had double vision, vertigo, and nausea. And things kept getting worse and worse. They were concerned about their peripheral vision. And they had gone to the conventional eye doctors and, things like glaucoma and neurological disease, retinal detachments, conditions like that were all ruled out. So it became a functional vision problem at that point. But what they wanted to do is just give her a prism prescription, and she didn't want that. She felt that prisms were just going to reinforce the imbalance that was already going on. So one of the breakthroughs that she had was, as we were doing a process, I asked her, what are you feeling in your body? What are you noticing? And she really couldn't answer that question. And I asked her again, I said, well, find one thing that you notice in your body. And this was after we had done about 2 minutes of the palm hum exercise that you know of. That's where you rub your hands together, you cup your palms over your eyes with your eyes closed, and on an exhale, you hum. And humming is a way that, number one, it brings the sound into the hands, which brings it into the eyes. Humming is a way to increase the nitric oxide in our biochemistry, and nitric oxide is a vasodilator. The other thing that humming seems to do is it helps us relax, slow down, open up. So in asking her the question, and she didn't really know the answer, this is a key point, that we have something called interoception, meaning that what's going on inside of our body? What are we feeling inside of ourselves? And I would say our culture, society, family, religion, politics, everything is so externally driven. We look for the next thing externally, and we start disconnecting from our somatic awareness, our body. So when I asked her a second time, she said, oh, after the palm hum, my shoulders drop. And I said, well, what does that mean to you? She said, well, actually, yeah, my neck feels better. It's not as stressed. And I guess my shoulders dropping is a relaxation signal. So in that moment, it went from fix my vision through glasses, and it went into, well, if we regulate your nervous system, then vision can automatically change, but so can many other things. As she went into this more deeply, just from the palm hum, she noticed more peripheral awareness, less double vision, less vertigo. And so that became one of her signature home practices that she did. Now, the other key points that I didn't share in terms of the type of optical system she was looking through, she wears progressive lenses. And as you know, I've talked about this in many content pieces. Progressive lenses, the only part of the lens that's usable is right in the center. And trying to focus your vision through these tiny windows is very, very stressful. And if your two eyes aren't working together, it creates a disorientation loop because there's so much pressure on your brain and eyes to find the right quadrant to look through. And more important, progressive lenses really reduce your peripheral vision. So when you start tunneling like this, you're stimulating your sympathetic nervous system to work more. And this is the stress response that many people in progressive lenses go into, but they don't even know the reason why. And clearly, the vertigo and the disorientation and the double was being triggered by, first of all, the progressive lenses, and second of all, nervous system dysregulation. So the missing conversation is what's happening in your vestibular system, what's happening in your breathing, what's happening in your nervous system, what's happening in your posture. So there's something I use called the balance triangle, where we have three components to good balance. The first is optimal peripheral vision. Number two is vestibular stimulation. And number three is proprioception. And if any of those are not working properly, this creates a disorientation loop that creates a lot of stress in our organism. Progressive lenses tend to dysregulate our vestibular system because once our peripheral vision reduces, we have less vestibular functioning and we have less proprioception. As our peripheral vision increases, then our inner ear, our vestibular system can work better. And this gives us better connection and control over our proprioception. So I call this perceptual ecology. Perceptual ecology means that perception is not isolated in the eyes, but is part of the eye-brain-body connection. And perceptual ecology is relational. It's embodied. The way we see affects the way we orient, and the way we orient is the way we regulate. We have to orient well to be able to regulate, and then our perception opens up. And that's the sequence in perceptual ecology, and it's a very potent way of relating to yourself and your environment. I'd like to invite you to my upcoming class called Clear the Fog. This is a 4-week immersion. It starts June 10th. And we're going to explore these issues around proprioception, vestibular health, peripheral vision, as it relates to our nervous system. And there are many great practices and processes that I can teach you to help you clear the fog. Because once we have a confusion in our perceptual ecology, it starts to affect our cognitive health, our memory, our focus, and things like balance, orientation, and problem solving. So I'll put the link in the show notes, and I think I'm going to end it here. So that's our show for today. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, take good care.